Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Robotics Pathways and Career Speaker Series. Does everybody know what the one question we get the most about our new robotics major and our new robotics department? Does anybody remember?
We should all be able to say it together.
Yeah. What can I do with the robotics major?
What the heck can I do with a robotics degree?
Right. And so we have this great seminar series to basically show you examples of excellent roboticists that have come through. And we're at this point in the semester we have a number of great alumni who are coming back to talking about their experiences. So we have Bruce Huang today. We have Shiva Ghosh, who's at NVIDIA, who's gonna be speaking in 2 weeks. And then Zhen Zhang, who's at JP Morgan, is going to speak at it could be our last speaker for the series in December. And so with that, please feel free to grab some pizza, sign in, and feel free to ask any questions. But with that, I'm going to give the floor to my colleague, Professor Jessy Grizzle.
Yes, and I will keep this very short because Bruce is going to talk about his life as part of his introduction, and I don't want to give away anything. But I do want to say that just like Bruce has indicated here, he worked with me. So he joined the lab after he more or less finished his master's degree, was looking for the Ph.D. Me recruiting him was one of the smartest things I ever did, okay? And all I had to do was say yes because he wanted to join the lab. So it was one of the smartest things I've ever done. I just want to thank you, Bruce, publicly for all the work you did while you were a PhD student. It was awesome. And the amazing work that you and the team of master students have been doing to make Cassie fully autonomous with high-level planning. And I know you have a video on that in there, but Bruce has been acting essentially like a postdoc since he finished his PhD. And with that, Bruce, I give you the floor.
Okay, thanks, Jesse. Can you guys hear me just right? Okay, I will take that as a yes. So yeah, it's actually an honor to be back to talk about my experience. So as you can see that we have a springboard. So the topic today is robotics job hunting. And Chet was asking that, what a roboticist could do. And I want to rephrase the question to what a roboticist can do. So, start from that, I can see there's a little, again, see a little people here jumping from the springboard. And essentially, the more you prepare, the more you could aim for your goal. It's not necessarily to be any kinds of companies or just your dream jobs. So let's dive in. So here's the outline of the talk. First, I will talk about myself, and then answer your question about what roboticists could do. And then we will go on to, okay, now you know what you can do. Now, how do you prepare to get what you want to do? And that process called interview. And later on, once you know the interview process, you need to know how to crack the interview so they can get, a lot of job offers. And then at the end, we will talk about how you could negotiate your offer so that you can get to the top of your conversation. So a little about myself. You can see, well, my name is Bruce, as Jesse introduced, and then I graduated a few months back, 2022 April. And then I was in the Biped Lab with Jessy Grizzle, Professor Jessy Grizzle. And then what I was doing was motion planning, sensor fusion, localization, and autonomous system for like a robot Cassie. So Cassie, we keep talking Cassie. Cassie actually is the top right, is the right robot there, and that's a picture I took. And I'm currently affiliated with Google, and then before I joined Google, I actually got many offers from FAANG companies like Meta, Amazon, and other startups as well. And what I like to do when I was free is, I like to do snowboarding, and I like to take pictures. So you can see this is actually my Instagram, and I have many pictures that I took. So if you like snowboarding, let me know. Maybe you can team up. We can team up. Okay, so now is what robotics could do is I will introduce first video of what we did in the lab. So in this video, you will see Cassie Blue walks autonomously from a building to another, and all the process without GPS, and all the process is done online. So first, we show Cassie a map to follow. You can see that the drawing on the top left is, we draw that, and then we show that. You can see Jinzo here show the map to Cassie, and this work is done by Chi and the master student in the lab. And now it's registered to the OpenStreetMap, which is open source graph-based map. So you can see Cassie is walking autonomously on board, and you can see on the top left is the graph OpenStreetMap. On the top right is identified region where Cassie, need to identify which region is walkable, which region is not walkable. And you can see it's more interesting that we go on the curve for a little, and going straight, and we turn again. Now I need to, here. Oops. All right. All right. So here is a team of people that work on this project. I need to showcase that without them there will be no video and no experiments. So you might be wonder. Okay. Now that I see this first, you see Cassie identified intersection, and then we need to turn left and go on to the crosswalk. So when Cassie was on the sidewalk, she identified that sidewalk is walkable and the grass and the road is not walkable. Now because we need to cross the street, if the road / crosswalk is walkable. Yep, so we cross the street, and then the planner tells, okay, we need to cross another street. So Cassie does everything on board, and identifying which part of the road is currently walkable and which is not walkable. Okay, so all right, so we just keep going, and then we reach our O lab. All right, so we reach GTB, and that concludes the video. So that's what I did and what the group did in the lab. That looks pretty cool, but the question is, does everything just smoothly come into play? As you can tell from my accent, I'm not a American, and I flew from Taiwan actually, and then my degree was in my undergrad was electrical engineering, so I have nothing to do with robotics. And how do I, a master and a PhD, how do I, transform into a roboticist and then complete this experiment? So again, when I was in Taiwan, studied EE, I was doing wireless power transfer. So it's nothing related to roboticist. And then I started with my master at University of Michigan with robotics degree. And I first joined April Lab doing some SLAM and then April Tech stuff. And then I first joined Professor Johnson Robinson's lab, doing some data set collection and also some pipeline for autonomous vehicle. And then I joined Professor Corsor's lab, doing some video captioning. Then finally, I joined Jessy's lab, and then I decided to stay and start my PhD. So you can see that I actually bump around in different labs. it's it's pretty hard to find what you like and what you're interested in, and then finally settle down. So as a newbie that doesn't know anything about robotics, I believe now you're undergrad or graduate school, that you're on the correct path, and so that you can definitely achieve what you want to achieve. Okay, so that's about me. Now let's talk about what a roboticist could do. Actually, anything required human operations or can be moved could be a robot. For example, you can see there's a aircraft is going to space. We have drones that are delivering products, goods. You can see, fancy autonomous vehicles, ground robot, and those underwater robots. And you can see we have Cassie, Digit, and also Mini Cheetah, and Spot, and also the Boston Dynamics Atlas, and also some Lego robots. So now anything, right? And how about things cannot move? They can also be kind of robot because, like, for example, like Meta, they have VR headsets. You need to identify where you are. They need to map your room. They need to know, where you are in the room, right? So that's kind of robotics as well. And also there are something smart homes or Internet of Things that also could be included as well. Next, has to be a thing, right? We keep saying anything require, anything can move or cannot move. Does it have to be a thing? Well, you can see there's a skip on the bottom right. So that means because of the time constraint, I will skip this slide, but I have the page number here. So like if you want to, you can write a number and then we can discuss at the end. So, and I will just pause a little for those slides that I will be skipping. And just for the record, that if you want to watch the video again, you can take a look. So basically, it does not have to be a thing. So leverage your ultimate imaginations. And that's why I rephrased the question that what can you do as a roboticist? Next. Now we talk about a lot of cool things that you could do with your robotics degree. And to do what you want to do, you need to get into either startup or companies, or start your own companies. But like if you don't go to the last route, then you need to get to know the interview process so that you can get into your dream companies. So first, this part of the talk will be engaged into three main parts of interview process. One is the first four is what types of questions you can expect to have, what kind of questions you'll be asking. And then later on we'll talk about now what they'll be asking and why do you need to know why do they ask that and how do you prepare that. And later on I would share some tips to negotiate or maximize your offers. So general process is we have five steps. The first is to submit your application, and then if you've qualified, which we would discuss a little later on, how do you write your amazing resume, and then you will get a phone call from a recruiter, and then have some phone screens, and then you will have technical interviews. And after you've passed a few rounds of technical interviews, you will have on-site interviews, which now called virtual on-site because of COVID. It's no longer you need to fly to the building, but you just do a stay at home and then prepare a computer and then to talk with them. And later on, once you pass all the interviews, you will get job offers, and then we will talk how do you negotiate them. Applications, yes. So the first part is the applications. You need to search, basically 5 steps again. Search, you need to read job descriptions, and then write your cover letter based on your job description. And then you need to find the friends in that company to refer for you, and then just wait. So this slide, I will skip it because it just many companies, and then you could look through it. Now, how do you apply?
Bruce, can
Yes.
you actually go back to that slide and maybe spend a little time on it, just for some students that,
Yes.
that don't know? No, yeah. You want to go just a quick overview of the slide and the companies that have considered.
Okay, cool. So companies, for FANG or main company is Meta, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google. So those are 5 companies that have an abbreviation called MANG or FANG. And also, this is not an inclusive list for sure. This is just I just write it in like 3 minutes. So like, and there's some auto industry like Waymo, Neuro, Zoox, UofM Planet, Tesla. Those are, autonomous vehicle companies. And then there are some research institutes like Toyota Research Institute, Honda Research Institute. And there are several, many startups in robotics like Boston Dynamics, Amazon Robotics, or Tesla Bot. They want to build some humanoid robot, and also JK Robotics. And there are many more startups that you could look for. So those are, you need to first look up your companies, and then you need to, and once you find, the job or the position that you want to apply, you need to customize your CL, stands for cover letter, and CV based on their job description. And why do we need to do that? I would explain in the following slides. So, and next is once you customize your CV, you submit it. Before you submit it, find a friend in that company to refer for you, because that can kind of speed it up your process so that the recruiter can find you quicker and easier. Now we need to, once you look up several companies, you need to rank in order of your preference. Why do you need to do that? Because I would suggest you apply from the bottom to top, because when you first interview with the company, you are pretty green. You need to warm up, and you need to be prepared for yourself. You can take the first few interviews as a practice, so that when you really interview with your favorite company, you can be a mature interviewer. All right, and then another tip I have is arrange your interviews around a similar time, so that because you need to do many preparation for interviews, and you don't want the period to drag too long, because you might get rusty when time pass. Cool. So that's some tips when you apply your jobs. Now, why do we need to write a attractive CV? Can I just write a formal way and then just send it? No, because all recruiters, they are trained. They have trained eyes, so they only scan through your CV in 6 seconds, and you need to catch their eyes within 30 seconds, so that you can ensure that your resume passed to hiring manager, or your resume just be thrown away, and that's why you would not have any interviews. So you can see here that they kind of spot through. So on the top, on the right is the gaze angle of people do research on how recruiters read your resume. So the more dots were the red color is where they put their emphasis on. So you can see that they kind of focus on the top and then less dots on the bottom. So that means they care. So that means that you need to put whatever you're more proud of. So people tend to, put, in a, timely order. Okay, this is what I do in 2020. That's what I do in 2021. That's what I do in 2022. But, the recruiter doesn't care. Recruiters don't care that. They care is, so you want to put your most proud of stuff on the top, so that they could, attract reviewers' eyes. So that's why you need to write your, CV with different type of positions, so the recruiters can spot you as a competitive interviewees. Next is phone screens. Now, so we talk about how do we prepare our applications, how do we write our CVs. Now, we need to say is phone screens is you have one connection call with recruiter, because recruiter found your CV and found it interesting, and they will call you or email you, and then just random talk about you need to prepare for that, and then just read the job description, and then prepare and then talk about yourself. And sometimes they might ask that what is your expectation for your salary or compensation? I would suggest not disclosing them at this point because you never know what is the upper bound. You don't have any reference to say, okay, what is my expectation? Next is one or two phone screens with interviewers, which is not recruiters. And this kind of interviews would be more deeply into your work or based on depending on different jobs positions, they will have different questions. So you do need to prepare for this kind of technical interviews. Once you pass the phone screen, you will have several technical interviews, which they could include four types: behavioral questions, domain or / research knowledge, and also coding. If you're applying for software engineer, you need to prepare for coding as well. And then if you're a PhD, you are likely to have presentation as a part of your interview process. Now, virtual, once you pass several of them, it's a long process. So I keep saying you pass, you pass, you pass. So you do need to prepare for different kinds of interviews. And finally, congratulations that you got onto the on-site interviews. It's going to be final, but long and exhausted because you have 4 to 7 interviews in a day. But now because of, usually, if that's real on-site, you just spend a whole day in the building. But now because of COVID, they tend, you need to sit in front of your laptop for a whole day. But some companies, they will split into 2 days, for example, so that you have some time to refresh. But in general, it's long and exhausted, and it's one-to-one, and it typically have 60 minutes each, 45 to 60 minutes each, consecutively. And interviewers would tend to be your hiring manager or qualified people at a company. So they might not have exactly the same background as you, so you need to prepare a little bit broader than your expertise. The next is, okay, now we talk about what type of questions we could expect at different stages. Now we need to talk about how do we prepare them. So the first is behavioral questions. Here I would split into 2 things. One is, why do they ask that? Because you need to know the reason they ask that. You should prepare, you should aim for how to answer their question. So you need to know why, and then you know how. Okay, so why do they ask behavioral questions? Because they want to know if you're a good person to work with, right? So you need to, and typical question they will ask is, about yourself and tell me about a time, whatever, right? And some negative questions. And why do you join this company, for example? And then have you ever fight with your advisor, for example? So those are kind of different type of behavioral questions that you need to prepare. It's actually better that you go through you go through different kinds of questions, and then just prepare some stories for each type of question.
Could you give an example? Hi, Bruce. Could you give an example of a negative? Can you give an example of a negative question? What does that mean?
Yes. Okay. So I would go here. So I have some questions, example questions here. I just Googled, and then behavioral questions just pop up. I just copy and paste here. Negative questions. What is your weakness? And what do you like the least about your previous job or internship? So like those kind of questions, they want you to criticize yourself or whatever your experience. But the point here is, yes, they want you to expose your weakness. But you don't want to completely expose it. You want to admit that, but you also want to say, how do you address that? For example, the first one is, what are the weaknesses? I would say, in terms of new grads, I don't have any industry experience. Like I don't know coding. I practice coding a lot, but no, I don't know, coding style in the different companies. However, right in the lab, unlike in the big industry, I have a lot of hands-on experience that I can take leads on. Right. So that kind of like transform your weakness to your strengths again. So these kind of questions, you need to think through it before they ask you. Yeah. So these kind of questions are easy to prepare, but you do need to prepare. Does that answer, Chet?
Yeah, sounds good. You're already 1 step ahead of me. So good stuff.
Cool. All right. All right. So again, I will skip this for the rest. And then some other questions are, why do you want this position? Why do you join this company? And also something like, have you ever did more than was required? Something like that. You need to give some examples and dive into why do you decide to do more? Something like that. And next is preparation for your domain knowledge and research. So they want to know if you have the knowledge they need. So you need to read their job description. If you have friends there, that's the best, just asking what they're working on. So you can prepare, to prepare this kind of different topics based on what they're working on, because they are likely to ask you some question about what they are working on, and they want to know if you understand the field. So you definitely need to read the job description. Another thing to do is you can look up your interviewers. Usually they will give the name of interviewers like a few days beforehand. So you can look up their LinkedIn and then to see their titles and what they have been working on. Or if they're they are a researcher, and then you could look up a Google Scholar to see their recent publications, something like that. So they can give you a hint or a taste of what type of interview that would be, right? Because as an interviewer, they would not try to ask some questions they don't know the answer of, right? They would not do that. Cool. So that's how you prepare for your domain and research knowledge. Next is perhaps if you're applying for software engineers, this is going to be a huge part of the interview process is coding interviews. And what they want to do is they want to know how do you approach a problem or question, and they want to know that if you're a good worker to discuss a new problem as well. So that means they want to know how you approach it. They want to know if you are a good worker to discuss. So you need to prepare. You just prepare for your own speed, and then track your process so that you know which type of questions that you need more practice, for example. And LeetCode is a good platform that you can practice. And ultimately, what you need to do is to prepare and to practice. You keep talking. So when you do code interview, you need to keep just talking, just convey your idea, and then to kind of, if you're not in the correct path, the interviewer usually will give you some guidance, right? So you need to keep talking, and you don't keep silence while coding. That's just not what they want, because they want to know if you're a good worker to discuss a question. So, and here I will skip that as well. Here there are different data algorithms and refreshers here. And next is you need to understand some C++ standard libraries and some easy lambda functions or casting or iterators. So because when you type, you cannot look up the internet, right? So you need to be familiar with those kind of libraries. And there are some LeetCode example like this, like TwoSum is quite easy. But this is just showcase that what kind of interview problems that would be. The next is I would suggest. So in my PhD, I actually use Vim all the time. I never use IDEs, but actually I found this IDE is quite interesting. I think it's Visual Studio. The way I use it, because this could integrate with your LeetCode account. So basically, you could take a look at different questions and then just code it here, and you can compile and to see your answer is correct or not. So this I found is pretty useful when I prepare my interviews. And also you could keep track of whatever the questions that you need more practice on. So tips while coding is don't start coding right away, because you need to clarify the plot. So I found that when I do interviews, they tend to give you some vague questions, and they will give you some space or rooms to clarify the problem. So you need to clarify the problem first, so you can interact with your interviewers, and then you could ask questions and then constraints and something like that, and then you can start with writing your pseudocode, and to make sure that you are on the correct path, because the code interview would tend usually it's 45 to an hour long, and then you don't want to spend times on, or you don't want to waste your time on incorrect path. So start with pseudocode and then write some comments and then, interact with your interviewers. So the most important thing is just keep talking while you code. You just need to practice, and then once you finish the code, you need to explain your solution, like why do you do this? Why do you use a map? Why do you not use auto map or auto map? Something like that. And or analyze your algorithm like time complexity or memory complexity, like big O complexity, for example. Now, this I will skip. This is for a PhD. Usually, if you are a PhD and you're applying for jobs, they will ask you to prepare some presentations, and that will be an hour long, and they will ask you some questions about like your research or something like that. Job offers. Okay, so job offers. They would congratulations that you finished all of your interviews, and then you got your offers. And the offers, they will give recruiters will give you some call you and tell you, hey, congratulations that I want to offer you an offer, for example, and that's called the verbal offers. That means you don't have any written evidence, but just give you a heads up, something like that. And then some companies will give you written offer, some company would not. And on the phone call, usually the recruiters will push you to accept that. Okay, give you a timeline. Okay, I need to know your decision by the end of this week or by the end of 24 hours, for example. They will try to push you to accept the offer, because you need to know that recruiters, they spend tons of time finding a good candidate to pass all of these long and exhaustive interviews. So it's pretty rare. So they want you to accept the offer so that their effort will not be wasted. So they usually would push you, but you need to gracefully postpone it by, okay, thank you for the offer, but then I want to discuss more about the job itself. So you need to arrange another meeting, which is HM, stands for hiring manager. So something like that, they would, you could schedule a meeting to postpone the timeline to accept an offer. The reason to do that is you want to negotiate it, right? You might be waiting for other offers from other companies. You want to have some ground to know what your value is, how much you're worth, right? So you your value, right? You need to know your value, and then you can negotiate it. And another thing important is that you want to examine them as well. It's not they picked you, right? They say, okay, you're qualified. Now it's your turn to say, okay, if you're qualified, if the company qualifies my standard, right? You need to examine that. Okay, how was the interview process? Are the interviewers, respectful? Are they punctuation, or are they, is the interview finished on time? Something like that can give you some, hint if the company is good to work for. Then another important question is, are you willing to work with the people going through the same process, right? So if you feel like, you don't like the interview process, and if other people don't like the interview process, and you don't trust in the process, then perhaps it's a red flag for you for the company, right? So it's also your time to examine the company as well. Okay, the final is job offer negotiation. Now you got tons of offers, right? And now you need to see, okay, if they lowball you, if they give you a really low price, lower than the market standard, right? You need to, so at this point, you need to ask your friends and look up online to find some information to make sure that you are getting a competitive compensation, or TC, we call total compensation, including base, bonus, equity, sign-on bonus, or any refreshers. So those are, you need to ask in detail. And then also you need to compare, like interview process or the company cultures, or are they tend to give you promotions faster or something like that. And also team culture. So you need to, for each company, you need to do your own research to see, just to look around. And how do you negotiate it? As I said in the very beginning, the recruiter in the phone call, they might ask you what is your expectation. I would suggest, just my personal experience, that I would not suggest showing your cards, because you need, you never know your upper bound. And before you know what they are willing to offer, you don't need to show them you don't need to show them what your expectations is. But anyway, if they ask you, you definitely need to review your attitude and gratitude. Like something like, I indeed enjoy talking with the team, blah, 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 blah. The number is a good starting points, like if they give you some numbers and you think, oh, that's good, but, it's lower than other companies offers me. So that means if you have some other offers that we call it competing offers, you have some competing offers, then it's actually the best way you can negotiate for your compensation. Right, I think I'm on time.
All
A little
right.
bit over. Yes.
All right. Excellent. Let's give Dr. Huang a round of applause. Thank you.